Hi everyone, welcome to another week of the Rails Dispatch. I hope you've been enjoying the dispatch so far. This week we're going to talk about another brand new API, the new ActiveRecord APIs. We're going to be talking about it from the perspective of adding some features to the application we built in the first week. And that was the how to build a blog in 15 minutes. So let's pick up pretty much where we left off from that blog. Before we do that, we're going to need to upgrade the version of Rails that we're using. So let's just pop into our gem file and update it to 3.0.0.beta 3. Jump into the console, run bundle install, and we should get the updated versions of everything that we need. The very first thing we're going to do is to add some caching to our existing application. So let's hop into views, go into posts, index.html.erb, and adding caching is going to be really straightforward here. We just type in cache do, and that tells Rails to cache everything that's inside of this block. And we put an end at the end. Next, we go into our controller, to the post controller, and we specify a before filter so that we can sweep the fragments whenever we make any change to the actual underlying model. So before create, update, and destroy, we're going to sweep any fragment caches that we've created. Now we go and make a private method here called sweep. And in this method, we're just going to say that we're going to expire the fragment for the action index. After specifying the way to expire our fragment, let's move the code that handles the ordering of the posts out of the controller and into the model. So let's just grab that order posts. We'll just replace it with descending. And if we jump into our models, into post, we actually get a really nice API here where we can just say scope descending, which is what we want to call it, and then just paste it right in. So we get to actually just drop in the exact same code. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a migration for a published column. So now we're going to allow you to actually specify that you want a post to be published at a certain time, as opposed to it always being published at exactly the moment that you hit enter. So we generate our migration, and then we go and we run rake db migrate. The generated migration comes with everything that we need here. Next, we'll add a field to our form to hold the date. Remember that because this is a form partial, this is going to work in both our new form and our edit form. So we'll add a label to say publish on, and then we'll just add in a date field and specify the published on attribute. If we then go into the web browser and go to localhost 3000/posts, we'll find our blog. If you click new post, you'll see that the publish on date picker is right there. Next, let's filter the posts in our index method so that they only include posts that have already been published, posts whose published on date exists in the past. We'll just put this code in line for now. So published on is smaller or equal to date.today. Because all ActiveRecord queries are lazy, we're going to see that after the first hit to the page, which does query the database, subsequent hits do not query the database. And that's because the actual enumeration of the query happens inside of the cache block. So if we hit the cache, we successfully avoid hitting the database in subsequent times. After this second hit, you can see that the database was not hit at all. Next, let's provide a way of showing all of the future posts. We're going to do this by specifying a new queue route on the resource of posts on the collection. We're going to want to display our future posts in ascending order, so let's go back into our post model and create a new scope for ascending. Now that we've created the published on properties, we're going to want both the ascending and descending order to be in terms of published on, not created at. Now let's go into our controller and make the queue method. So we'll define here a method called queue, and we're basically going to do the same thing here. We're going to get a list of the posts at posts, and instead of posts being smaller or equal to today, they're going to be bigger than today. We want them to be .ascending. Next, we're going to respond with the posts, which gives us the Atom feed, but for HTML, we want to be rendering the index template. So format.html, render index. If we go hit the queue route in the browser, we'll see that we do actually get a different thing here. Next, let's go abstract out this where into the model. So let's call it post.past, and we'll go into the model, and let's make a new method here, a class method called past, self.past, and we'll just paste in that code directly in here, where published on is smaller or equal to date.today. And now let's do the exact same thing with the queue. So we'll grab this out, we'll specify that it's post.future, and we'll go put it in a new method called self.future. In ActiveRecord 2.3, we had three totally different concepts here. Finders, which were specified as post.findAll with a conditions array. We had a separate concept of named scopes, which were in the model and looked like this: named scope, descending, order published on desk. And then we had a third concept of with scope, which could be with exclusive scope. And then you could specify with scope and then do a find all inside there. In Rails 3, all of those concepts are unified around one thing, which is the relation. And what that means is that it becomes very easy to take one of these things from one of the three contexts and move it somewhere else, as we just saw. Scopes can be combined however you want. They're decoupled from SQL, no more string munging, and they're lazy, which is how the cache trick worked before, no hitting the SQL database. I hope you enjoyed week 4 talking about the new ActiveRecord API. Keep an eye on Rails Dispatch. Come back next week for more, and check out the new question and answer feature released this week.